10 potential future wars. We got more what if alt hits. Shout out to the what if alt hits people that enjoy these reactions. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for subscribing. Welcome, welcome, welcome. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's check out these potential wars. I'm gonna see if like me personally, if I'm like, yeah, that seems legit or nah, that's far-fetched. We'll see though. Let's go.
The post-war period is an illusion. Since the Second World War, the population has been able to delude themselves that ahead lay a permanent period of peace, equality, progress, mutual respect, or love. The reality from anyone who has read the slightest amount of history is that there have been many periods before which also believed this. They were all wrong. War and the horrors of the world can be kept at bay for a century, and if you're really lucky, maybe 200 years, like the Pax Romana. The
That's a
irony,
long
though, is
time.
that this peace is always brought by an overwhelming ability to use violence. All of the
Okay.
great periods of peace, whether the last 80 years, the Pax Romana, or the 19th century, were caused by a great empire who made the waging of war not economical for other players. All things eventually
Hmm.
come to their own demise, and peace brings on weakness which leads to war. This is how things have always been. To believe otherwise when thousands of years say differently is foolish at best and mad at worst. I hope people can see that
Understandable.
today, when America, our era's hegemon, has grown weaker, wars are
It
starting to spring
has.
up around the
Yes.
world. Whether in
Yes.
Israel, Ukraine, Armenia, or Burma, China and Burma are committing genocide today. We're not
It's
wiser or
wild.
more moral now, we've just established good incentives against war. Our age is a dam that's about to break. All the institutions that were established at the foundation of our age, at the end of the world's wars, are breaking down. My channel has spent dozens of hours detailing this, and so I won't go into great depth here, but you can watch these videos if you want to know more. This video will talk
Hmm.
about the 10 potential ways that war could break out in, let's say, the next 25 years. I don't know if these wars will happen. As
I mean, 25 years, like, yeah, that's a big time gap, but at the same time, we're talking about like a world war, and it does take time for something like that to happen. It doesn't just happen in the spur of a moment, right? World wars take a long time on top of that. So I don't want to sit here and try and predict anything. Let's just go ahead and continue the video.
As I always say, my job is betting against God, and I will almost certainly turn out to be wrong in a litany of ways. In fact,
Okay,
I don't think most of these will
that's
happen, but
interesting.
I guess a few will. That being said, it's important and fun to try to shadow box these scenarios. These videos aren't really ordered, in that I'm not saying the last number is the most important or anything like that. I
Okay,
already
these are
know
just
you guys are going
scenarios
to
in
enjoy
general.
this.
Okay. Welcome to What If All His. Bro, this intro, I don't know what it is, but this intro makes me feel nostalgic. This is like 2012
The
YouTube.
world is a dark and scary place, and things are getting worse. And that's evident in politics, culture, anthropology, but it's also evident in technology. And it's
Yeah.
become clear with recent news how the current groupthink is deeply affecting AI for the worst. In contrast, the Boltzmann network emerges as a beacon of innovation
Oh, is this an
in
ad?
decentralized AI by using crypto and blockchain to transform data security, transparency, and scalability. The guys at Boltzmann are Whatifalthist fans, and I'm friends with some of the guys who work there, and they're
Okay.
on board with the shared mission. Overcoming the limitations of centralized AI, where privacy and capacity constraints prevail, Boltzmann offers a groundbreaking alternative. Its decentralized web of computing power ensures unlimited scalability, robust data protection, and true transparency. Boltzmann's pioneering encryption will be the
It
future
sounds
of AI
interesting.
infrastructure for industries like finance and healthcare, while its
Really?
transparent architecture offers a clear view into a secure,
Wow.
efficient future for individual users. Step into the
Huh.
future with Boltzmann. Join our Telegram at the following link to experience the future of crypto and AI where privacy meets unlimited potential. Boltzmann Network, pioneering a secure, scalable, transparent tomorrow for AI with crypto.
Huh. AI with crypto, huh? Y'all let me know if you guys are sold on this idea and this sponsorship or advertisement or whatever the hell that was.
1. A second Korean War. Most people assume
Yikes.
situations will stay in stasis, or that whatever the status quo at any given time will remain. The reality is that the status quo is driven by certain active processes, which are constantly changing at any given time. There needs to be an active pressure to maintain the status quo, rather than see it fall into entropy, as all things naturally do. What this means is that in unstable situations over the course of a century, there is a high chance that they end up decaying into something worse. The pressure will end up going somewhere. One of the most high pressure places in the world now is Korea. I've been meaning to make a video on Korea for a long time, since I think it's a society with profound symbolism behind it. Although I'd need to do more research to make a full video on the topic. Korea was artificially split in half due to great power politics during the Cold War between capitalist and communist halves. Ironically, they both turned into dystopias. Due to
True.
geographic, ethnic, and cultural
Absolutely
similarities
true.
inside a pretty small country, Korea will gradually gravitate towards unity over time. Both Koreas are in a very unstable place now for opposite reasons. North Korea is one of the most totalitarian societies in the world. It's a dinosaur from the Stalinist age, which should not be around today in all
But it
honesty.
still
It's
is
propped up by
somehow.
China. For this reason, in my
Oh,
opinion, the
China.
chances
Okay.
North Korea collapses within the next 25 years are pretty high. The collapse of North Korea would create immense complications due to the border with China and how to deal
100%
with the
would.
third largest military on Earth. This creates possible fodder for a war. The second irony is that South Korea has one of the lowest birth rates on Earth. Its population is crowded, overworked, and depressed. It
Yes.
also has one of the highest suicide rates. It's a
Yes.
prime example of mouse utopia, if you believe in that theory. Meanwhile, North Korea has a stable
Mouse
birth
Utopia?
rate. The
Hmm.
converse is that in 10 or 20 years, especially in a world with a weaker America, North Korea might gain a strong enough advantage to attack the South. Another scenario is North Korea, due to internal difficulties, especially if America is occupied elsewhere, could attack the South for an attempt to unify their population through an external threat. Either way, the Korean Peninsula is one of the places in the world which could most plausibly have a major war. Number 2, the Chinese invasion of Taiwan. For a majority of these topics, I've covered them in greater depth in other videos. For this topic, it's through this video, and so I won't go
Hmm.
into as
Actually, this is an interesting conversation, right? When it talks about World War, and we talk about China a lot because, of course, China is China, right? So Taiwan, Taiwan, China could attack Taiwan, right? China could prop up North Korea. North Korea could collapse, but then South Korea would obviously start taking back the North Korea land, but it's bordered with China, which could cause an issue, right? So you have China, South Korea having an issue, and then or you could have Taiwan and China have an issue. What would happen if China and Taiwan and South Korea and China have an issue at the same time? I think maybe China, they have so many people, right? So it'd be it'd be interesting because of like the political stuff that's going on in this such a small area. Even though it's like, of course, it's a large area, but it's like a concentrated area of just political tension, man. It's got to be insane. I wouldn't want to be any military leader involved with any of this shit over here, man. It looks insane.
much detail. The short explanation is that Taiwan, a liberal capitalist democracy, which is an American ally, is an affront to Communist China's entire right to rule, since they are an alternative Chinese government from the Chinese Civil War. Thus, Beijing
Okay.
obsesses over the reconquest of Taiwan. They've repeatedly over the last few years literally said that they'd have a war over Taiwan. This becomes even more exacerbated if America is occupied elsewhere. China has been doing everything it would do if it were to attack Taiwan. They've been stockpiling resources like food, iron, or oil, building up ships, putting their army near Taiwan, and releasing inflammatory statements about doing this. Frankly, I'll be surprised if China doesn't attack Taiwan in the next few years, especially if America has severe issues with this next presidential election. This may
Oh
sound
man.
extreme, but keep in mind the weakening of the American empire has
Yes.
already resulted in war in Ukraine, Armenia, and
Yes.
Israel.
Like, bro, how can like as an American, how on earth are we able to be the police of the world, trying to police multiple countries at the same time? And we're already having issues at home. It just doesn't seem like a good scenario at all.
This would be a major political issue in America, since if America didn't protect Taiwan, it would be a sign to the rest of our allies that we're weak. On top of this, Taiwan is the center of semiconductor manufacturing, something that's very hard to
It's
transfer
important.
elsewhere, and upon which the global economy is totally dependent. At the same time, starting a war over Taiwan would cause World War III, and America has its own very serious internal issues, which I'm not sure could deal with having an external war. Frankly, for reasons I explain in greater depth elsewhere, I think China would lose an invasion of Taiwan, even if America wasn't involved. I frankly don't think the Chinese military is that good. Also, an amphibious invasion against a mountainous jungle island like Taiwan is
Yeah,
obscenely
good luck.
hard. If China did lose this campaign, it would be an easy springboard to the next event, as well as probably precipitating other geopolitical shifts elsewhere in the world.
Yeah,
A real
100% would.
assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand moment, in my opinion. Part 3. The Chinese Civil War. I think China is
Oh,
on the verge of the
okay.
bloodiest war in
Really?
history, for reasons which
Really?
I explain in this video. China,
Huh.
ironically, has many of the same social issues as America today, including
Huh.
corrupt governance, income inequality,
Yes.
economic struggles, large groups of dissatisfied young men, a dating and population crisis, although for each of those, China is in a far, far worse place than America. I mean, Chinese youth unemployment was something like 50% last summer. We're getting to the point where the Chinese have nothing to lose. China has all the variables
Literally.
lined up for that which a country on the verge of revolution would have.
Oh,
China's
man.
birth rate is also in complete freefall, and they have a
Really?
large demographic aging out of the workplace without children or
Oh,
retirement savings. A population crash of China's level has never been seen before in history and has to come with political changes since the current Chinese social structure can't support itself through it, especially since the current
makes
Chinese
sense.
elite's right to rule is based off economic growth. Yet China can no longer sustain said economic growth due to population collapse, and especially so with Western businesses pulling out. I don't know the exact causal mechanism through which this plays out. Maybe a failed invasion of Taiwan, maybe the death of Xi Jinping. All I know is that
Hmm.
I think China will spiral into warlords. Its
Okay.
cities can't feed themselves.
Oh, man, dude, that would be insane. Yeah, that like China is super big, so many different territories. You're right, dude. If these people were to spur off into civil war, this wouldn't be a small thing. This would be really big. Whoa, holy moly.
So I think things will get ugly. People will retreat back into the countryside. I
Hmm.
say that this will be the bloodiest war in history since China today has more people than the entire world during the 19th century, so
What?
its social collapse would get really nasty. Number
Wow, I
4,
didn't know
the
that.
Russian Civil War. I talk
Okay,
about this in greater depth in this video. China and Russia are largely in the same boat. They have aging issues, economic problems, a corrupt elite, dissatisfied youth, and a ruling class without the right to rule. Russia's aging is so bad, being one of the worst in the world, that its
really?
current social structure can't survive
Whoa.
as well. On top of this, I see it starting with roughly similar causes, that being the failure of the war in Ukraine or the death of Putin. I also expect Russia to collapse into warlordism. The reason I say the world as a whole is on the verge of political crisis at the same time is that we have computer models that predict when revolutions happen. These
Okay.
target 3 variables, being income inequality, average wages, and competition for jobs. There are a bunch of other metrics that can offer useful parallels, those being average age of marriage, height, sleep, and about 20 other things. They were used to predict the French or the Russian revolutions, the fall of the Roman Republic, the Black Death, or the wars of religion during the 1600s. These sorts of crises happen around the world roughly every 250 years. All of these variables are blasting off around
How
the
many
world
years has it been?
today. Frankly, with the horrifying aging that's going on around the world today, I can't see the current social structure surviving. Modernity built its right to rule around progress and growth, but with population collapse, that becomes impossible. This means a major political shift, which really means war. On top of this, just look around the world today. Wherever you look, you see protests, government spending into oblivion to survive, wars of desperation, and anything else you would look for. It's like how almost every country in the world was at war or had a political crisis in the year 1645, or
Huh.
1348. Number 5, the Great Caucasian
Man, I'm telling people, I be telling people history is super important, bro. Look at this, 1644. Look at all this. Look at this. And it's crazy because people think history is like, oh yeah, it was so long ago. Oh, it doesn't affect me now. It's like, no, it literally affects you now because it's history. And history will continue to happen because the future becomes the present, and then the present becomes the past, and the past is part of history. So what happens now is always important. And people just don't take it seriously, man. Just humans repeat themselves over and over and over again. Honestly, we really do. Like, as smart as we get, as intelligent we can get, as many books or whatever, YouTube videos that come out, like, of course, we have the advantage to learn so much because of the internet. But because so many people are on the internet and so many people are greedy, now we have brain rot. Now we have the infinite scroll, making people dumber. People cannot think for themselves. So, I mean, of course, they're not going to think about history. They can't even think about what they want to eat today, right? It's insane. And more people need to realize this shit. Like, this is real. This is legit. This is real life, man. It's not a game. It's crazy.
1645 or 1348. Number 5, the Great Caucasian War. The
The Great
collapse of Russia
Caucasian
creates a
War.
power vacuum, one that will
Oh.
probably be filled by Muslims to Russia's south who have a stronger birth rate. My belief is the rise of a future Turkish empire, and that's become a
Hmm.
meme, but I still stand by it. Turkey has military forces in about half a dozen different countries around the world today on 3 different continents. It has
Wow.
established its current right to rule. Turkey has military forces in downwards of a dozen different countries around the world on 3 different continents. It has established its current right to rule around rebuilding the Ottoman Empire.
Oh
Turkey
boy.
is in a rough place economically and politically now, with a terrible economy, but as a relatively young industrialized country, I see very strong fundamentals.
I like the uncle just pops up, bro. He's just like pops up smoking a cigarette. Like, what is this? He just
I
walks
see the
across the
Turks
street.
seizing the peninsula of Crimea, much like how they ran it from 1520 to 1780. They would use this as a position to control the Black Sea and its traffic. I also see the Turks trying to wipe out the Armenians in the Caucasus, which they are already trying to do with their fellow Turkic Azeri allies. I also see the Turks allying with the Chechens, Muslims from the southern part of Russia. I think the Chechens will become great conquerors soon as well. They are tough, fanatical, and intrepid fighters. As Russia falls apart, I see them breaking free and raiding into Russia. The result of this war would be to turn the Caucasus Muslim and Turkic influenced. Number 6, the dissolution of Pakistan. I'm frankly shocked
Ah,
Pakistan is still a country. It's split by ethnicity, geography, and anything else you could possibly imagine
it's a
except
lot of people.
Sunni Islam. Pakistan is very food dependent and is an unstable, corrupt country. They've even had their own western border overrun by the Taliban. As
Oh
the
man.
world order gets chaotic, I don't think Pakistan has the will to survive, since there is no strong pressure to do so, and lots of different groups who want to split off. Especially if food supplies get rough, Pakistan will fall into complete disarray. India is doing relatively well, and so with a collapsed Pakistan, I see them conquering Pakistan east of the Indus River, moving India back to its traditional historic borders. India is
Hmm.
vastly stronger than Pakistan by almost any metric, while the border between
Yeah.
Pakistan and India is
I hear India is supposed to be like the next global powerhouse because of, like, of course, the population and the technology. So yeah, we'll see, but I definitely can envision it.
largely artificial, and this is a major goal for Indian nationalists.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, the Pakistan west of the River Indus would fall to independent Baluchistan or the Taliban, who are already infiltrating that area of Pakistan, who would look to unify the Pashtuns in both Pakistan and Afghanistan. Pakistan would thus be divided along the more sane borders, which have split it over most of history, but that leads us to the next segment. Number 7, the Afghan Wars of Expansion. It wouldn't surprise me if the Afghans will
Expansion.
launch a
Hmm.
wave of external conquests.
What
This
makes
is
sense?
partly since if you look over history, the Afghans are constantly attacking outwards, especially
Hmm.
towards India. We have records of the
Okay.
Afghans invading India over 20 times over the course of
Wow.
human history.
20
That being
times.
said, India as of now is strong enough it could fight off the Afghans, thus it will probably be directed elsewhere. Afghanistan has all the pre-existing factors for greatness. They spent a century fighting off foreign invaders, thus
Yes.
creating a shared will to fight. They are a poor, tough, mountainous country with a strong warrior culture. They have a fanatical religion, which instills shared values and toughness. They're surrounded by weak neighbors. They have a pre-established military structure from recent wars. They have ambitions to conquer neighboring areas under a messianic religion. These invasions could either be led by the Taliban, ISIS in Khorasan, or some new faction we don't know about. Central
Okay.
Asia's states are weak bunker regimes without a strong right to rule. They also are overpopulated and dependent on foreign food supply. Thus, if the global
Really?
order gets weakened, they could make easy pickings. We've
Hmm.
already spoken about Pakistan. The Muslim world
Yeah.
has recently seen collapsing birth rates, urbanization, and religiosity, thus making them weaker fighters, while the Afghans haven't, which will make them stronger. Number 8, a US-Iran war. I've already
Really?
covered this topic in this video. We've seen
Hmm.
several war scares between the US and
Yes,
Iran
we have.
already.
I remember I was still enlisted whenever like we were talking about Iran, and it was interesting times, man. It was interesting times, but yeah, it's also very terrifying times. But we will see.
In the last few years. There have been several points where, for example, they fired missiles at each other and made
Whoa,
vague
really?
threats of war.
Oh
Israel has
no.
become a recent crux for this, in that Israel is Iran's greatest enemy. Israel has been fighting Hamas, who is being backed by Iran, while at the same time,
Okay.
Iran has attacked American bases in the Levant near Israel. This would fundamentally come out of a place of insecurity for both the Americans and Iranians. The American leadership is the same as the war on terror 20 years ago, and
Oh
has
great.
many of the same agendas that are leftovers.
Oh
Thus,
great.
I could see the American leadership class wanting to finish their older project of destroying Iran, something they've been wanting to do for 40 years, ever since the imams kicked out our puppet, the Shah. I could also see the
Hmm.
US government making this decision to avoid its own internal issues, with using an external war to bolster support for Joe Biden before an election, or to frankly just get rid of
When did this video come out? 2 months ago. Hmm.
young men so they don't launch a revolution. The irony is that this would in all reality obscenely backfire, in that the isolationist Republican Party would not support said war, and young American men would refuse to fight. If fought under today's circumstances, American war with Iran would benefit Iran at the expense of America. For Iran, the calculus is similar in that their regime is incredibly unpopular, and their economy is terrible. Iran
Okay.
would start a war to unify their population as well. Although I don't think America
Yeah, I mean that's always been one of the greater things to make people come together is fighting an enemy, right? So it's, let's continue the
would be
video.
able to win
Yeah, like I'm trying not to just say some crazy shit, bro. Let's just continue.
this war, since Iran's mountainous and desert climate, alongside with it being industrialized, would make it impossible for America to conquer. Number 9, the US Civil War. God, I've spent
I've heard a lot about this. I for many a year I've heard about a civil war in America. Bro, let's hear it out.
so many
Like, do y'all like what are y'all opinions? Like, what do y'all think? What do y'all think? Like, should I watch any of these Civil War videos? Like, what do y'all think?
hours covering this topic. The short answer is that America has many of the same political and social issues as what I describe in China or Russia. America is unequal, most Americans live close to subsistence today, the government is completely distrusted while America is stuck with horrifying political polarization. Political polarization is so bad in America that nothing else in the society can be accomplished. I've said before that I think America will have a civil war within the next year, since there are various triggers that can't be
Really?
pushed much further in America than they are. These include the truly vast debt, the mass immigration of
True.
tens of millions of illegals, the economic issues, which the average American has, or the severe psychological issues among the population. America needs an internal conflict to reset. I've also said before that the American right would win said war, at least
Of course they would. Of course. Like, bro, all they want to do is fight. Like, everyone that wants to fight versus people that want peace. And yeah, sometimes they get angry. Yeah, yeah, of
if the
course.
left didn't
No shit.
succeed at framing the conflict in a way in which the military would crush the right. This is since most of the fighters in the military tilt right, the police tilt right, gun owners tilt right, as do most young men. The American right is a single coherent geographic region it controls, while the left is
Damn.
isolated into city-states on the coast, which often don't even connect with the other. The
Huh.
right has the
Interesting.
food, oil, electricity, or manufacturing. The American left detests masculinity, martial traits, hierarchy, or discipline, with those being the very same traits that win wars. That being said, the American right has almost no ideological unity, being divided between Christians, fascists, Petersonians, red pillars, eugenicists, libertarians, and about half a dozen other factions. That means that once the right wins, there's a solid chance that there is another round of civil wars
Yes,
inside the right to
100%.
determine who
Of
will lead.
course. Yeah, 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 yeah. I see that for sure. Like, yeah, right versus left, right stomps, right versus right. Uh, let's see what right stomps.
Number 10, the European troubles. Western Europe
European
faces a
troubles, huh?
lot of the issues described in America, Russia, or
That's
China,
big.
including political distrust, inequality, mass migration issues, most people barely surviving, debt, or political polarization. The great difference in Europe and America is that America is much better armed as a nation than Western Europe is. America has a significant military, which almost no one in Western Europe does. The American police are armed, as are the civilians. In America, those who own weapons are conservatives. America is also a significantly younger country with more angry young men and in general is more conservative than Western Europe. Europe in general doesn't have the will or young men to fight real wars. That being said, their political institutions are totally unsustainable, and a lot of the continent is facing horrifying aging as well. Europe needs violence to reset, but doesn't have the will to carry it out. On top
Hmm.
of this, Northern Europe is literally trying to commit civilizational suicide through mass
What?
immigration or climate-focused degrowth. I talk about all of these issues in this video. I say
A
that
year
Western
ago.
Europe will
Wow.
instead face a period of instability comparable to Latin American juntas or ancient Greek city-states. Various factions will launch coups, and these mobs in the street will fight each other. I don't know who will win this process, but Europe as a coherent force will lose as it becomes unstable, nihilistic, and poor.
What a way to end the video, bro. Like no send off, no outro. It's just like, yeah, man, war, the end.
Succeed.
Uh, I want to say, like, of course, I enjoy watching videos like this because it does teach you, it does let you know, like, hey, stuff is changing all over the world all the time. But yeah, it seems like there's a pattern here, right? Rapid aging population, apparently across the world, inflation across the world. And of course, there's, subtle, minute differences that could spark these issues into becoming wars. But when you actually look at a couple of these, some of these countries, they have incentive to have war. So if you have an incentive for war, then war is most likely around the corner. People don't realize, the only reason why we have peace is because it's not profitable to have war. But as soon as war is profitable, of course, people with money are going to try and fund that. They're going to go profiteering, basically. So, yeah, definitely. If anything, man, you guys need to just start training for yourselves. Trying to rely on the government is, if you need to not rely on the government and rely on your community. Like your community should come together. You guys should actually have, you know, conversations that might involve, hey, we need to take care of each other because, back in human history, that's what we did. That is what the community and the villages is for. We're stronger together than we are separated. Nowadays, everybody's separated for whatever reason, political, religion, whatever. Everybody is separated and when they have a knife to each other's throat. More people need to get involved with their communities. And that's all the advice I got for you guys, man. Good luck. Stay safe out there. War definitely could be around the corner. War is already happening all around the world, right? And the more that it becomes profitable and more incentivized, the more it's gonna pop up everywhere. So just prepare, man. Be safe. 100% be safe, man. Be careful, guys. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you're new here, subscribe. If you want to check out more videos like this, of course, leave a comment. Say, hey, man, I love this video. And that's what you guys did with the taboo video. I appreciate you guys that checked out the taboo video. Check it out here. It was a great video. I really enjoyed it. I also enjoyed this video too. It was very informal. Anyways, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.